Hi everyone. I hope you're excited to be here today. My name is Kemi Dada, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's Ocean Leadership Series event. And if you're new on this platform, this is Aquaworld. We're a group of young people who are focused on adding value to the aquatic world and its resources, as well as envisioning a future where everyone gets acquainted with the aquatic world. And just to touch a little bit on the different things we do, we provide opportunities like the Aqua Fact, where people can discover amazing mysteries and facts about the aquatic world. And one interesting thing about Aqua Fact is that we send out pictures of different living creatures in the sea and ask people to identify them by naming them. And we keep a logbook of frequent participants. At the end of the month, you get a gift for being responsive and for getting the answers right. We also have the timeout session where we connect with the younger generation through ocean education. There's also the beach cleanup. If you're very familiar with the environmental issues in Nigeria, you would know that plastic pollution is something we're dealing with, and also improper waste disposal. So one thing Aquaworld has been very intentional about is organizing beach cleanup events that is focused on making sure our coastal environments are clean, also sensitizing people who live in the coastline on the relevance of keeping the environment clean. If you want to learn more about Aquaworld and the things the organization engage in, you can look through the website. Among other resources is the Ocean Leadership Series, like we're having now, where we invite different experts from like marine environment research, oceanography, biogeochemistry, different aspects of aquatic science. And it just shows you that there's so much to do in this sector. So if you're new, if you're trying to figure out yourself, I'm telling you, you're in the right place because we've learned so much from most of our guests. So to move on, just to show you a bit more insight into our achievements as a group, the group has conducted over 15 projects. We've won over $50,000 in grants. We have over 150 volunteers. We've conducted community engagements in like over 20 coastal communities. This group encompasses students from different parts of the world, like over 32 countries reached. Right now, I'm talking to you from Virginia in the United States. The guest we had last week was talking to you from Canada. The moderator was talking to you from the United Kingdom. Our guest today shuffles Ghana, Nigeria, some other parts of the world. The founder of the organization is everywhere. So you are in a good place. If you want to go everywhere, you should join Aquaworld because you're going to tap into very good networks. We've also engaged over 20,000 individuals and gained two global recognitions. And here we're just trying to be humble because we've actually gotten even more than two global recognitions. With that, I want to say emojis flying. I'm not seeing anything. It's not easy to have this kind of profile as a youth organization. So let me see the emojis flying, people appreciating the group. Okay, so moving on, I would call on our guest for today to share our slides. I am not seeing the emojis. I want more emojis. I appreciate the group, I appreciate Aquaworld for what they've done so far. Chinomso, if you're ready, you can share your slides.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to mute all the notifications on my screen and I can't seem to do that. So my apologies if you keep hearing all those momentary sounds.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
very
it's fine. While
grateful.
she's trying to set up a slide, I will just briefly introduce our guest for today. Like I just mentioned, her name is Dr. Chinomso, emphasis on the doctor part. She is a multidisciplinary researcher and a science communicator with a PhD in integrated coastal zone management. Her work focuses on climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction, nature-based solution, and sustainable ocean governance. She has a background in environmental pollution and toxicology, and she's currently the co-coordinator for the Early Career Ocean Professionals Program in Nigeria. She's very passionate about translating science into action. She engages in stakeholder-driven research and has presented at numerous international conferences. Her current research interests include ecosystem modeling using the inverse coastal vulnerability model, coastal resilience research, and fostering inclusive approaches to marine conservation and development. Please, with a round of applause, let us welcome Dr. Chinomso as she gives us a talk on nature-based solutions to coastal resilience. Thank you. I am not seeing the emojis. Are you people here?
All right, thank you so much, Kemi. Thanks for having me. Hi everyone. I'm audible, right? Am I very audible?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So hi everyone. My name is Chinomso Onwubiko, and um, today I'll be speaking to us on nature-based solutions to coastal resilience. Yeah, nature-based solutions to coastal resilience, a more sustainable approach. So this was partly inspired by my PhD research. So nature-based solutions was a concept that emerged in the late 2000s, and the idea was to use natural processes or ecosystems to address issues such as climate change and loss of biodiversity. And the concept was also formed at the Copenhagen conference in 2009, where forests were proposed as a solution to addressing climate change. And it was recognized as a climate action at COP21 by the Paris Agreement. Now, the origin of nature-based solution as a solution to coastal resilience stemmed from its recognition or the recognition of its role in reducing coastal hazards in some countries and some issues that are predominant to coastal dwellers or people living in coastal communities are sea level rise, storm surges, and erosion. And the reason and all these impacts of climate change can all be mitigated using nature-based solution. And the reason is because traditional engineering approaches are costly, not sustainable, and harm coastal ecosystems. Now, there are several definitions to nature-based solutions, but for today's presentation, we would be looking at the definition of nature-based solutions by the IUCN, that's the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And they define nature-based solutions as actions that protect, sustainably manage, restore natural or modified ecosystems, addressing societal challenges while providing benefits for human well-being and biodiversity. Now, nature-based solutions it can either be restorative, issue-specific, infrastructure, management, or protection themed approaches or solutions. And these are all geared towards conserving biodiversity and for the benefit of human well-being. So what is coastal resilience? Coastal resilience refers to the ability of coastal communities or ecosystems to withstand hazards. So in the course of this presentation, I'm going to be chipping in bits and bits of my PhD work. So for my research, I did a little bit of coastal modeling, and part of what I did was to use a model called the inverse coastal vulnerability model to assess the role of coastal ecosystems, or the role they play when they are in a healthy state or not in a healthy state, right? And one of the assumptions of the model was that a healthy ecosystem produces a more resilient community, and a degraded ecosystem produces a less resilient community. So when ecosystems are healthy, they produce a more resilient community, and vice versa. So I did point, I wanted to share a few examples of areas where nature-based solutions has been implemented. And I was able to come up with countries outside of Africa where nature-based solutions has been implemented, and they've been majorly mangrove restoration. Now, I keep speaking, you will keep hearing me talk about mangroves because mangroves was an ecosystem that I worked with. But if you're in another country or continent that has another ecosystem that is more prevalent, like say coral reefs or sea grasses, your focus is going to shift away from mangroves, right? So in Bangladesh and India, a nature-based restoration was launched in 2000, and the outcome was an enrichment and assisted natural regeneration. And the same was done in Vietnam, and the outcome was that there was a significant role in maintaining and increasing the mangrove forest in the area. And there was also one that was carried out recently in Nigeria, specifically the River State, which is one of the Niger Delta states in Nigeria. And the outcome was a revived, excuse me, a revived fish stock and boosting the local livelihood in the area. Now, if you're familiar with the ecosystem services that these ecosystems provide, fish revival of or aquaculture generally is part of what mangrove does. So some of the benefits of nature-based solutions, excuse me, regulating climate. So for example, for mangroves are known for um, storing carbon or carbon dioxide, which is one of the greenhouse gases. And it also provides ecosystem services like flood protection, biodiversity, supports biodiversity and the rest of them. It also contributes to providing green spaces. Trees can do this as well, and also recreational areas. And also, trading the produce from these mangroves can support the local economies where these ecosystems are located. So yeah, I would like to share with us one of the results I got from my work. So this is a result from sorry, this is a result from, my apologies. All right, so this is a result from my study from the inverse model that I used. So the model, one of the things the model does is that it produces scenarios of with mangroves and without mangroves. Now, remember that if you're using this model and mangrove is not the predominant ecosystem in your region, your focus is going to shift from mangroves, right? So the model produces scenarios of with mangrove and without mangrove. So with mangrove assumes that the mangroves are in its pristine state or healthy state, and without mangroves assumes that the mangroves are degraded or totally degraded, which is an extreme scenario, right? So, and it shows you, I'm going to zoom in here. So the without mangrove scenario, you see different colors of red, orange, green, and the rest of them. So the legend here says that the lowest is the green color, the intermediate is yellow or orange, while the highest exposure is the red. So we have areas of red, areas that are highly exposed to flooding in these communities. And now when you come to the exposure with mangroves, you see a reduction in those red areas. And it also shows you areas where you can focus your interest in planting or replanting of mangroves, as the case may be. And then the image or the diagram up here shows you that in the presence of mangroves, we have what's it called? You have lowest exposure with the presence of mangroves, and with the absence of mangroves, the exposure is increased. So some of the best practices for a successful nature-based solution project. So from my study, I saw that stakeholders must be involved, especially the indigenous community members. And by indigenous, I mean the people who live with these ecosystems, because they are the primary users of these ecosystems. And secondly, a nature-based project or solution project has to be integrated in its approach. It must involve the ecologist, the microbiologist, the ICZM, the physicist, the chemist. It's not a one-man job. And if need be, gray infrastructure is also needed. And then in conclusion, I'll say that nature-based solutions offers a more sustainable and cost-effective solution for coastal resilience. And it also offers multi-benefits, ecologically, socially, economically, and environmentally. And it involves a multidisciplinary and co-design approach. I did mention that earlier, and very important, the people who are the primary users of these ecosystems must be carried along from the conceptualization of the project to the end of the project. And collaboration and monitoring are key. Thank you.
Wow, that was very insightful. Thank you so much, Chinomso, for that wonderful presentation. And it's good to see how mangrove is playing a key role in Nigeria. I'm more familiar with salt marshes and living shorelines because that's what people do here, mostly in the US. But I think mangrove is more common to tropical areas like Nigeria. And I have a couple of questions. I'm gonna throw questions to the audience too, but while you prepare your questions and things to ask, I would like to start by asking, during your research, what was community participation like? Like, did you experience any challenges with getting them involved?
Thank you for that question. So if you're familiar with Nigeria, the Niger Delta area to be specific, it's a very volatile area. So luckily or thankfully for me, the period I did my study, the area was calm. But I had issues with the chiefs in the area. So they were demanding for money. Of course, I know that if you're entering a community, you have to there's always an amount of money you have to give to them, but they were demanding for more. I think that was the only issue I had. So if you don't give this, you will not be granted access to the people. So you have to give some money in order to be granted access to speak with the community members. And they observe their chiefs. So if you're not at par with their chief, if you're not in good talking condition with their chief, they will not give you that attention. So you have to do what they want or pacify them or come to a compromise with them in a way before you can do that. But I think that was the only issue I experienced. And then a couple of times we saw a boat that was burning in the middle of the river. that was quite scary. Yeah. Aside from that, there was no other issue.
Oh, that's interesting. And from the findings of your research, before you started your work, did you think the community were already open to the relevance of having mangroves in their area? Or it was something you had to educate them on? Because I know sometimes they used to have their own kind of local adaptation to climate changes. So did they already have something in on ground, or they were open to the mangrove restoration idea?
Yeah, they had a few things they were doing. I just had to let them know what I was proposing. So they had what they call mud piling. So there were areas where they would pile up mods. The way you use just like one of the images I shared, the way you use stones to wall off water. So they had mud, they used mud to do that instead. And that was working for them. But you can't find mud in all the areas. Mud is usually not seen in all areas, yeah. So they had what
Yeah.
they were doing for themselves, but I had to educate them on what I was proposing. Yeah.
Okay. And I think their idea might also not be sustainable because when the flooding comes, it washes the mud away. So they have to keep constructing the structures over and over again. Well, did you present your results to them
Yeah,
after your
I did.
research?
After no.
Oh,
So that's the
okay.
problem. I told them I will, but I don't know if I want. Okay, so even if I want to go back, it would take a lot to actually get to them.
Mm,
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't presented my results to them.
to them. But I think one way could be working with the agency. So do you know if there's any agency on ground, like on a national level or even in the states that works with these communities in terms of flooding response and educating them on conservation issues?
Not really. So another thing I observed in those areas was that the only time they actually receive things from from the mainland are during election periods.
Oh, mm,
So you can imagine. I mean, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. So when I got there first, they thought I was from the government.
oh,
I had to keep saying it over and over and over again that I am not from the government. I am a student. I want to carry out a research here. And I had to show them my ID card. So they thought that I was, and they had this hostile attitude towards the government.
is it me or is everybody frozen?
Think it's our network.
Except a few contacts
Okay.
that I
I
got
think
in
it's a
terms
network.
of my work.
Yeah, I think she's back. We lost you for a minute.
Oh, okay. Am I
Yeah.
back now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying, except a few contacts that I had during the course of my research, but there are other areas where I do not have any form of contact with them anymore. And I really doubt people don't go there. You know, they're so I feel my impression was so there's there's something called a point of no return. I see those areas as a point of no return because
Mm,
it's very scary. I mean, it's very serene, and when you're going down, it's very serene and all. But you
mm,
know how unstable those areas are. There's a point you get to, and if peradventure someone ambushes you, I
mm.
mean, it's just you and God, right? So that's how those areas are.
Wow. So security concerns, we would say, is one issue for community engagements. Wow, that's very serious. Okay, I think we lost her again. If you have your questions, you can please either highlight in the comment or just raise your hand. And then I have one last question before I like throw it out to the audience. I know we have, is it Nima and Sema?
Nema.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what it is, but can you like shed more light on what the agencies are supposed to do and what they are doing?
Hmm. So what the agency is supposed to do is
Just sorry, can you like
they
start with like sorry, can you like tell us what NEMA is so people like
um
understand? Yeah.
okay, hold on a minute. I want to get the name right. So NEMA stands for the National Emergency Management Agency, and
Mhm.
SEMA is the state emergency management agency, right?
Mhm.
So the state oversees the state, while the national oversees the national. And part of what I also did was to engage NEMA and the Ministry of Environment. And from what I heard from some of the staff that I spoke with, there's no proper coordination between NEMA and SEMA. They should coordinate or work hand in glove to, you know, oversee their respective jurisdictions. But in reality, I don't think that happens. So usually they are supposed to when there is say for example when there's a flood disaster in these communities. First of all, if there is going to be a flood disaster in the communities, they should notify the community members. But I don't know if that happens. But when there is now the actual disaster, they are supposed to provide relief materials, evacuate these people, and all that. And, kind of take care of them till they are able to get back on their feet. But I really don't think that's actually what happens.
They give them rice, I guess.
Exactly. They give they keep
Wow.
I'm sorry I'm laughing. It's
Yeah.
it's it's very laughable. But what actually happens on paper, I remember when I spoke to one of them, he gave me a detailed rundown of what they are meant to do, which I cannot remember right now. Forgive me. And what we hear them do on the news is a far cry. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, thank you very much. So I'm gonna throw the question asking to the general audience because I feel like I've been asking so much questions so far. Well, you did a good job with answering, and I've gained so much from this conversation. And it's just good to see that we don't only have community problem, we also have governance problem. So it's so much to do if we're going to adapt nature-based solution or even climate adaptation in general. I'll call on Mustafa Suibat. I think she had a hand up first to ask a question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. So I have I have two questions actually, but I'm going to combine it. So I want to ask in like capital wise for nature-based solution, how affordable are nature-based solution? Let's assume that you are going to establish it from scratch. How affordable like the mangrove restoration you talked about, how affordable the mangrove forest restoration. And my second question will be like in the long time, is it really sustainable? Because even the mangrove stuff, it can degrade, maybe too much load, the flooding, and it can be able to carry the capacity in the long run. So how sustainable, how long can it able to carry the capacity?
All right, thank you, um, Mustafa. So your first question, how affordable are nature-based solutions capital-wise? So they are not, I can't give you a number, but what usually happens is that I really don't know of individuals who fund nature-based solution projects, but I know that sometimes there are calls that are put out there, and if you have a project and you apply for some of these funds and you win, you're given the fund and you go about doing what you have to do. So I know that in a place called Ogoni in Rivers State, I know there's a nature-based, there's a mangrove planting project going on in those areas. And I think it's the government that is funding it. So this kind of projects, there are things that you have to partner with a higher institution that has the money. You have the idea, they have the money. So you put forward your idea and they give you the money and you go and do this project. So that's how that works. So for the second one, are they sustainable? I think they are, right? So that's also why I kept saying um ecosystems, we have different ecosystems that are predominant in different regions. So for example, in Nigeria, we don't just have mangroves, we have wetlands, but we have more of mangroves in the Niger Delta region, which is the area that has a larger percent, which is the area that actually has the mangroves that we have in Nigeria. So we have more mangroves than we have wetlands, and we have other ecosystems as well. But we focus more on the predominant ecosystems in the region. So now we have mangroves. Mangroves are very if you read about mangroves, they are very salt tolerant. They are very I can't remember all the properties now, but they can withstand all the pressures from the ocean. So yeah, they are very sustainable. And then mangrove wetlands, we can also tap into wetland conservation. I mean, wetlands absorb, they are like sponges, they absorb the excess water. We can also take care of our wetlands in order to act as a nature-based solution in reducing flood impacts in some communities. But if you ask me, I think they have more of mangroves and more works are done with mangroves more than wetlands. And also Kemi mentioned having you did mention seagrass, right? Was that seagrass you mentioned for
Salt
your area?
marshes and living
Salt
shorelines.
marshes.
Yeah.
Yes. So she works with salt marshes and not mangroves because those are the ecosystems that she has in her study area. So yes, to answer your question, they are very sustainable.
Yeah.
I hope I
Thank
answered your
you.
question.
I hope Suebat is satisfied with the response. And just to add, so it doesn't just end at implementing or a mangrove restoration project. So there's also a place for monitoring and like ensuring that the trees are growing properly and then involving the community and educating them because you can plant trees and after 10 years they cut it down for other things. So that's why community engagement is important. But yeah, they are very sustainable. You can read more on it if you want to get more insights. I'll call on Paul Olatunji for his own question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to our speaker. I don't want to pronounce the name so that I won't pronounce it incorrectly. I have two questions actually. Based on your profile, I think it was mentioned that you are an expert in integrated coastal zone management. So I just want to ask now, generally, not really about your project like in itself. Like, do you really think we can bring every stakeholders on board for a particular project? Like, what mechanism, as it were, can we really employ? Because from my understanding, if we are engaging the government, the policymakers, the local community, they all have their own different perspective about a particular project we are bringing to a community. So how do we bring everyone to the table to be sure that we are really going for this without anyone being left out? So that's the first question. So the second question is about your presentation about nature-based solution. So I would want to ask, like, do you think mangroves, as it were, or other nature-based solution, are they capable of removing microplastics from the coastal environment, like using them as a kind of bioremediation for microplastics pollution? So those are my two questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Paul. So to answer your first question, can you bring all stakeholders on board for a project? I'd like to think that you can. So at the beginning of every project, you are supposed to map all the stakeholders that are involved or will be involved in that project, and that is called stakeholder mapping. So you cannot go to the field without mapping your stakeholders first. And when we map stakeholders, we always make the mistake of having the indigenous committee members on the last list. So that's why I also kept emphasizing that they must be carried on from the conceptualization of the work to the last phase of the project. So yes, you can carry all stakeholders. So I did my mapping before I went to the field, and I engaged all the stakeholders that I mapped. So yes, you can map, you can carry all the stakeholders involved in that project for that project. You can bring them on board. It's possible. And then to your second question, can nature-based solution remove plastics? To be honest, I do not know, because that is not as much as I'm in the marine space, and plastic pollution is one of the foremost challenges of the decade. I wouldn't know because that is not my research interest. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that. Thank you. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just asking the question because I'm working on plastics.
Me, okay, yeah, it could be something you can find out. I mean, I'm sure there's someone who is doing it out there. You can check Google Scholar to know if there are papers on nature-based solutions and plastics and see how it's done. But I've never checked it out before.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? If not, I'll call on Paul Ayomide to provide some comments on the presentation. And just so you know, Paul is the founder of Aquaworld, and he's doing a very great job putting this group together. So, Mr. Paul, if you're here and if you're available, we'd like to have you provide some comments on the talk.
All right, thank you